Give me a myth about accounting, automation, or AI that you want to debunk.
AI is going to replace accountants.
What is the end-to-end finance accounting tech stack you use at Ramp?
My end goal is to have all of this automated.
This is something that we constantly have to think about. And I think to really realize that this is the Lumera Podcast, and I am your host, Soumya. Today, I am super excited to welcome Edwine as our guest on the podcast. Edwine has had an amazing career starting out at Big Four, EY, and PwC, and now most recently, she's the controller at Ramp.
Thank you for having me, Soumya. I've been at Ramp for 4 years, joined at their first accountants, first controller, and I was able to scale accounting and finance at Ramp. And we currently right now finalizing audit number 6 with the.
Wow. Before we dive into the work you did at Ramp, I'm curious to hear from you. Describe to friends about Big Four being a boot camp for accountants. What would you say is a core lesson you learned from Big Four that still shapes the way you run things at Ramp?
What I've learned is, number one, resilience. I was like placed in so many interesting situations working at Big Fours. I don't know if you had to do them, but like one of them is like waking up at 5 a.m. and going to do inventory count at the weirdest places, at the weirdest company, and not even knowing how to get there, like in the middle of winter, but figure it out and being fine after that. So that built resilience. In my case, I worked as a consultant auditor for different type of companies. Some of them were great. Some of them were extremely shitty. Like I remember they would just put me in a corner in the kitchen, not give me the files that I needed. And I'm aging myself, but like the way it used to be like 20 years ago, you would go to an audit client and they give you they just troll you all of these big files. And you, as your first year auditor, you have to go open the file and randomly select and put like sticky notes. so that part was fun. And so I remember one of my clients was a securitization client. I've never done securitization before, but they were securitizing mortgages all across Canada. And that was in the middle of the securitization crisis.
Oh my God.
So I learned so much about swap and everything and figuring it out. You can figure out everything. And that's just like outside of the control that you get. Like you get quality control, you get experience, you get mentorship, which is I feel like Big Four, like they build you up to provide quality work, but also to be able to face with different type of situations.
Yeah, totally. Oh my God, hearing you say that. So I had an inventory count, but I was really excited because it was Le Chateau warehouse. Do you remember that store?
This is a really fashionable clothing store, like Zara.
I know. And like I was doing basically shoe counting. I was counting shoe boxes, but I had to open every box and look at the shoes to make sure they were there. But so like, my parents were hosting some like New Year situation at home. And I was like, guys, see you later. I have work. But they're like, wait, this is your work? And I was like, yeah, pretty much. So, it's definitely been a ride. And I remember like another client in the dead of winter, they sent me to Detroit from Toronto. And it wasn't even the city of Detroit. It was like some suburb, basically like a highway town. And we would work so late that all the restaurants would close by the time we're done. Only McDonald's was open and I'm vegetarian. And I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to eat? And I basically ended up just eating I'm like, give me a burger without, the patty, which is basically like bread and lettuce. And I was like, what else? Like, I just need something.
That's so funny. That's so funny. But this type of experience like give you resilience. And as a woman, I'm an immigrant. As an immigrant, you have to figure it out.
Fast forward to now, how did coming to Ramp and being that first accounting hire at such an incredibly, fast-paced company, you've been there 4 years now. And if you look back to that moment when you started to now, how would you say this experience has changed your own playbook about like what it takes to be a really good controller?
So, Ramp is not my first controller experience. And then I think Ramp was the first time, I got to apply from all the lessons I've learned at my previous experience without being distracted with liquidity, without being
Mm,
distracted with, let's say, like a global health crisis, COVID, and having like resources and having support to do my best work.
right,
So in terms of playbook, when I joined Ramp, the company had just raised their Series B, and they had just signed their first line of credit for their customer card receivables. And the big priority was to get the audit done. I had to recreate the books. So there were no books. If you look at your accounting books, usually you'd expect to have like a chart of accounts with numbers.
right.
We didn't even have numbers in the chart of accounts. So I
Wow.
had to go back and remap and create numbers, GL, chart of accounts, and start from scratch. So that was a good experience because that allowed me to align our chart of accounts and align everything with the
Right,
vision that the executive and management team had of the company. Just me, and we had a outsourced accounting firm that was helping us, and with time, I was able to build a team. I was able to move to a stronger and better ERP, such as NetSuite. I was also able to work on different processes improvement that allows us to close faster,
hmm,
also streamline our processes and have the controls that are needed for us to get audited by like a big four company like Deloitte.
right. Oh my God. Okay. I'm just processing everything you said, and I'm thinking that is an unimaginable amount of work. But you've obviously built something amazing from where you started. And I'd love to take a peek into, what is the end-to-end finance accounting tech stack you use at Ramp? You mentioned upgrading to NetSuite, but walk me from, all the different processes and the transaction capture all the way through reporting.
This is fun. So first we have our accounting software. So accounting software is NetSuite, and we use them
Mhm.
for every type of payment, which is like a credit card, bill payment, everything. 99.9% of these transactions of the procure to pay
Yeah.
process, so they call it, goes to Ramp. And to Ramp, we have automation, we have OCR, we have categorization, and most of the AP work is done to Ramp, which is great. We use Flowcast close software, and that's helping us with tracking, monitoring the close, and also helping us with reconciliation. On the other side, for financial statement preparation, so right now we've just finalizing our audit, and we have to prepare the financial statement and the notes and everything and the tie out. We use Workday
Mhm.
for that as well.
Gotcha.
On the and then things that people don't see. Part of my close is making sure that all of our accounts are reconciled, and everything is done properly. Like we've been able to work on automating a lot of the processes and reporting related to product accounting or revenue accounting.
Mm.
It's still a working process, but I'm extremely blessed to have engineers and data people and product people dedicated to the accounting and finance team. And their job is to help us automate most of our revenue streams. So it gets
Right.
easier for my accounting team to reconcile them and book the entries that are needed to be booked at the end of the month.
So this is all that platform cache activity. And yeah, no, you absolutely need that. Otherwise, like, there are some plug and play tools. I'm curious if you've come across Modern Treasury. Outside of them, I actually don't know any other products that actually can do platform cache in a really good way. And I've talked to peers who don't have that engineering or data support, and you just don't even know how to start because, like, how do you do platform cache without, having access to those internal tables where the data
Yeah,
lives?
so that's interesting. So I think other people they use like other tools like Maxio, Jura, especially on the
Mm,
revenue side. For us, we were able to automate some reporting, so we don't have
yeah,
to use like these tools. Like we automate our own revenue recognition, like for
yeah,
SaaS product, for example. So we built the 606 reasoning
Love it.
in
Yeah.
inside of ledger. We call it ledger, and ledger
Mhm.
is our accounting intelligence or accounting ledger that is on top
Yeah.
of a data pipeline. So we have
Mhm.
data, all the customer transaction activities. We have all this data somewhere, and we put it in something we call ramp core, like a core data,
Mhm.
and we pipe it.
Right.
And the way we pipe it is we run queries, and these queries are piped to like Looker or Snowflake. Those
Mhm.
are data warehouse we use, reporting we use. And through Snowflake and Looker, we can have this dashboard that at the end of the month, my team can generate CSV upload to NetSuite. So my end goal is to have all of this automated and connected directly to NetSuite at the end. So you press a button
Yeah.
and all the entries post themselves. And then hopefully at some point you press a button, all the reconciliation get done by themselves. Or maybe at some point you
Yeah.
press a button and all the exception reports get solved on their own. And all
Yeah, yeah,
I do is
yeah.
review
I
them.
wish we had found each other 4 years ago when you were doing this at Ramp and I was doing this at Rippling, and then kind of somewhat a repeat at OpenAI, because even though we didn't talk to each other, it's funny because like our setup ended up looking very similar because of, you have this data in internal tables and then you have to pipe it to a Snowflake. We did end up figuring out the Snowflake to NetSuite connection. At Rippling, we used a product called Census.
Okay.
Uh, and then at OpenAI, we use a product called High Touch, but they essentially give you this ability to move your data back into NetSuite, either in like journal entry format or summarized, with whatever business logic you need. But it's just beautiful when it works and you're just like, this is what
I
I've been
know.
dreaming about, and it's finally
It's
here.
amazing, and it takes time. I would say, like for us, like when we are building a new product that's going to be like have revenue into it, we try to map it from the get go. We look at the different edge
Yep.
case, and we map each edge case to the right GL, the right account.
Yeah.
So whenever there is a close happening, you can just run it, and all the entries, all the transactions are mapped to the right GL. And I think the good thing is just like it just allows you, kind of force you to
Right.
think about every transaction and every scenario and to map from
Yeah.
the get go than having to map at the end, which is kind of like annoying and silly for team members to do.
Totally. So you said NetSuite, Ramp, of course, for AP, and Flowcast, Workiva. What do you use for equity accounting?
We use Kota.
Carta. And yeah, use Carta. We moved from Carta to ShareWorks,
That
and
actually, we're currently transitioning from Kota to ShareWork as well.
yeah, I'd say that, it's obviously a big lift to do any project, but once you set it up, it works beautifully and generally like pretty happy.
Yeah, I like that. I think like once you identify the issue, you do a good assessment. Once you have a
Yeah.
implementation, it just makes things like so magically right.
Do you have a big lease accounting situation at Ramp or not really?
Without, which is great. So we only have maybe 2, 3 leases. They're quite easy,
Okay.
and we've been able to outsource lease accounting to like a technical accounting partner, and you just take them like a couple hours. They update it, and that's it.
Fantastic. Um, you talked about getting a close process in place and, making efficiencies happen there. What is your close timeline now?
So my close timeline is between 5 to 8 days, depending on the
5 to 8
month.
days.
And the reason it's like that is we want to have more controls. We
Hmm.
want to have leadership, reconciliations, and everything like reviewed, prepared. So that kind of adds a couple of days. So usually, what we do a soft close in like
Hmm.
5, 6 days, and then after that, I'll give like maybe 5 days to my team to work
Right.
on the reconciliation and do like a hard close. So by the soft close, no numbers will change.
Hmm.
Close just like we have the numbers, we can give that to FP&A team, and they can work on the monthly business review and work on the
Right.
presentation to executive team. And then after, in the background, we work on tying out a reconciliation, reviewing everything, and going over to a checklist.
Gotcha. And how big is your team? Can I ask?
My team is quite small.
Yeah, it sounds like.
including me as we a team of 8 accountants. Um,
Wow. Okay. That's really impressive. Obviously you are heavy users of Ramp. I actually think you said it's such a blessing, but it is also such a good growth opportunity, I think, for us as accountants to work at these companies where you build products for users like us. I'm sure you had this experience, but you're the first customer to dog food your own products. You get to plug into the product team. You can have your wish list answered on Slack. There's just a lot of self learning and growth that comes from that. Um, I'm curious to hear from you. Like, doing a close at 5 to 8 business days is really impressive, especially with such a small team. Like 8 people is very, very efficient and lean. I if I were to ask you, what one or two things you did, either software implementations, moving a process from manual to some automated way, made the biggest difference for you, like shaved off the most amount of days off of close or manual work off of your team's plate, what would those be for you?
so I think what helped us a lot, and it was I hired a really good accountant at some point that was really good with SQL and coding. He
Mm,
was able to script a lot
nice.
of the reconciliation. So Ramp is a payment processing company. Like we process
Yeah.
credit card, process transaction. So we have a lot of bank
Mm,
accounts. A
yeah.
lot of transactions. So pretty much like every transaction that the customer does is a line item for us.
Yeah. So nobody say cash is the easy section at this type of company.
No, no. So
Yeah.
we were able to create script to reconcile this cash transaction, this bank transaction, this bank reconciliation. And by
Yeah.
doing this and automating that process, we are able to shave many, many days in the close process. So that's the number one things that we did. Just understanding the process, automating them, creating the script that we need to do, like allow my
Yeah.
team to close this section or like FSLI items within like
Right.
4 or 5 days. And on the other side, I'm thinking about like on the operating expenses side, like we use
Mm,
Ramp. So through Ramp, all of our expenses already categorized and they're already
hmm
recorded. So there's pretty much no work to do than just press a button and then the syncing happen automatically. And all we have to do is
Right.
review tagging of the product or review tagging of the department, pretty much.
Gotcha.
But
And do you run cost allocations within NetSuite itself?
we do that as well, and we're able to run cost allocation based on certain formulas that we have automatically,
hmm
and just upload the journal entries and review them.
One thing I didn't ask you earlier is, what do you use for HR and payroll?
We
Like
we use Velocity for HR.
Velocity.
We probably going to move to another HRS and maybe keep Velocity for now.
Gotcha. But they sync to NetSuite for payroll days?
My Velocity doesn't sync to NetSuite. Velocity syncs to Ramp, integrate to Ramp. So we were able to map our Velocity
Oh, interesting.
entry. So as we were implementing, and I implemented Velocity as well, I created a GL mapping in Velocity, and that
Right.
mapping gets reviewed like whenever we change like a cost structure, department, and everything.
hmm
To Velocity, a GL is already mapped to the right cost center.
Gotcha. So it's like one-time effort to set that mapping up, but
Exactly.
relatively okay
Exactly.
to maintain.
Exactly. So we're thinking now, how can we have AI do a review of the
Yeah.
application? But the mapping is pretty much done, and it takes like maybe like 20 minutes to 1 hour for the team member to review and make sure it's properly uploaded.
That's pretty cool. Obviously it sounds like you're running a tight ship and things are running really smoothly. What still feels painful? Like, what hasn't been solved? What do you wish would exist to make painful things go away?
I would say I think we still do have to do a lot of work on the automation side. Not all of my
Yeah.
products are fully automated. Like some of them we rely on third party data.
Mhm.
Like some of them we have to do reconciliation, like in reconciling between the third party and our own internal data. So that can be a little bit painful because we again in payment time zone are different, like status payment of status is different, like between cleared, pending, authorized, non-authorized, non-insured. It's a lot of different states, and
Yeah.
reconciling between the different type of transaction can be a little bit annoying. So we working
Yeah.
on automating that, this type of reconciliation. For me, what can be painful is like different type of compliance reporting.
Mhm.
We are money
MTLs.
MTL, and we have MTL
Yep.
licenses. And part of having these licenses is we need to do like quarterly or monthly reporting based on the states.
Yep.
And to do that, it can be extremely annoying as well, because every state has their own standards, their own requirements, their own reporting.
Yeah.
So that can be painful for the team. Tax compliance, I know maybe at OpenAI you had to deal with that as well. As you grow in
Yeah.
company, you have to think about different type of taxes, not only sales tax, like payroll tax, um,
Mm.
business tax, franchise tax, like so. I mean, dealing with sales tax audit, dealing with like gross receipt tax audit. So all of this
Yeah.
is annoying because you sometimes you don't have the person responsible for that, and you have
Right.
to figure it out as well. Like I said, my team is really lean, so tax compliance usually fall into me until we say.
Yeah.
So those are all the things that I'm like, oh my god, like how can I make this better for myself and better for
Right.
anyone that's going to come and take on this task.
Yeah, it's so interesting. Like, obviously, tools like ChatGPT and so many other tools on the market right now can do a lot on the generative side. But I always wonder, like, what if you could just give it a TB, right, of a close financials, and then you give it an example format of something that you did for, say, some state MTL reporting, and can it just like take the new TB and give you the thing that you did? And
Exactly. And
uh,
map it to
it
this transaction. So that's what
yeah,
I'm
like
going to experiment. So I think that's an experiment I want to run after my
yeah.
audit. I don't know for you, but I feel like for me, I'm always like running.
There's not a moment.
There's always like a priority. There's always something new. Like I'm
Yeah.
curious, how did you find the time to experiment and find the time to be like, okay, I need to do this, but I need to have time, like 2 3 hours to experiment and figure out how to use AI and how to implement new things and learn and teach the team
Right.
these new things as well.
I think the truth is like you have to force yourself to make that time. I get inspiration when I'm really kind of stuck on something, or I think, okay, real talk, I have this like lazy side of me where if I have to do something manually for too long, I just kind of start hating that work so much that I try, every like I don't need much motivation to try to experiment because I'm already really motivated to make this bad work go away. So I think when I find myself in those situations, I pull some late nights, and when you kind of get into a zone to try. But that is not something I recommend to the team, and like I would never stand in front of a team and say, you guys do that. So what we did was we did these team offsites, right? And like in the offsite we would carve out 2 3 hours and do some like lightweight hackathon type thing, basically give people time in their regular workday to make that space. It is more fun when you do it together as a group because everyone is tinkering and like there's ideas that can be exchanged and worked on together. um, there's no one rule. I think you have to kind of force that because yeah, you go from people say you go from close to close, but you go from close to like a 15 other things that came up in the middle that you have to handle that month, and then you go to the next close. So it's not like there's ever this real downtime for teams, and I empathize with that a lot too.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like we go from clothes to like new product development and building because we have to build the tools that we
Yeah.
need for the next month and close. And then sometimes we have to deal with auditors, with reporting and everything. So it can be challenging, but I think the key to that is like building a resilient team and a team that's really good at automating and really focused on the
Yeah.
task and know how to prioritize. Like we prioritize really well at Ramp.
Yeah. That's your superpower, right? You have to prioritize. Otherwise, it's just like the workload will crush you
Exactly.
if you don't know what to
Everything.
push
Yeah,
back.
because we know we cannot do everything. So we have to select. And that kind of
Yeah,
forces you to be extremely intentional about what you're automating as well.
that's true. I really like what you said just a little bit ago. You said, after close, it's time to build.
Mhm.
And I love that because it's actually one of the things I tell other controllers is you have to push for a tighter close timeline so you give yourself that time to build. Otherwise, there's no escaping your like bad cycle. But in that thought, when do you decide what you're going to build and what you're going to buy off the shelf?
That's a good question. I think the building and buying and maybe outsourcing, offshoring question is a question of resource allocation. Like we have
Mm,
limited resources, and my resources in my team are like the hours that I have with my team members. I can say I do have, we have a good budget. And if I
mm,
make a really strong case, I can get some budget allocation to buy the tools that we need most of the
mm,
time. So what I have that is in small quantity is head count and head count hours.
right.
So saying this, I need to maximize that time and save time to my team. So when I'm looking at processes, number one, I'm like, is there a tool that can solve my team problem and my team pain? If the
Right.
answer is yes, I would make a strong business case for it. And that's how we ended up with Workiva or something like
Mm,
Forecast, for example, because we had a tool that allowed us to be better at preparing financial statement like Workiva, and we adopted that tool. The
right.
second question is, what is the appetite of the company to allow us to buy that tool? At Ramp, I think the
Right.
general philosophy is to build internally. And they
Mm-hmm.
feel like they can build because they can learn from our own experience. Like Ramp is a company that helps accountants, controllers, people like me do better work. So there
Right.
is always the intention to learn from my pen and learn from my
Right.
experience so they can help other customers like me.
Yeah.
So if there is an appetite for that, I'll approach the engineering team, the data team, and product team, and they're going to help me build the ledger, build the tool that I need.
Right.
So now, if there is an appetite for building, the big question is this urgent? Is this important? What is the timeline to build this? Sometimes I
Mm,
need it now. Oh, I need it yesterday.
yeah.
It's too late. So if it's too late, like we figure out, okay, is there like a quick band-aid fix it that can help?
Mm,
Maybe there is, maybe we can have a contractor come in and doing it for us. And as the contractor is
right.
doing it, we can build the process and understand what the process is and build it after.
Right.
Or maybe there's no fix it. We just have to wait and go to the pen and build it. So that's the analysis that we do. Like, is what is our
Yeah.
appetite to build it for ourselves and understand what the problem is. If there is no appetite, we can just like get a reasonably priced tool that can help the team. If not, we're going to learn from that experience and build it internally for ourselves. And maybe our customers can learn from that experience and we can provide them with better tools to serve them.
Yeah.
So my intuition is usually let's build it.
This is super interesting. So, one, that is a really robust framework, right? And I think something that our peers like will are going to eat that up because it's like this is something that we constantly have to think about. And I think to really realize that headcount hours is the main constraint and what are the things you're going to do to bolster. I love that. I also am hearing like I think Ramp definitely has a much higher appetite than your average company to build for the accounting team because it is it's not just an investment in G&A. It's also like, what can you productize? Like, is Ledger something that you're going to productize eventually? I don't know if, maybe today, maybe later, but like,
Yeah.
it is so kind of central, and you can see a future where something like that then, you have a rules engine that goes into NetSuite could become part of like the overall platform. So that is really cool. But it also is the thing that's allowing you to keep such a small team going, right? Imagine you didn't have any of these investments. How many people do you think you would need
I can't
without
help
like the tech
you. I probably
investments,
need like double. I always tell people like
or more?
yeah, because I know a company similar like us, they do have 22 people, 24 people, and they
Yeah,
processing the same level of transaction than us, maybe less. And they have
I bet.
in India doing reconciliation for them. They have team in different places doing stuff for them. Whereas like for us, because we've
Yeah,
been able to run the script and to automate this report, we don't need that offshore team, or we don't need that same
yeah.
level of head count or contractors to help.
Okay, we only have a few minutes left, and we talked a lot. I know this flew by. We talked a lot about software and tech. I'm going to give you a lightning round where I'll ask you a question, and you're going to give me your 5 to 10 second answer. Okay, give me a myth about accounting, automation, or AI that you want to debunk.
Oh, AI is going to replace accountants.
I don't know though. I feel like I still wake up some days and I'm like, oh my God, what's going to happen? But I love that you're debunking that. Um, if your budget for software got cut by 90%,
Mhm.
I don't wish that on anybody, but if it did get cut by 90%, what single tool are you going to keep?
Oh my God, this is a really interesting question. Oh, can I keep
Hypothetically, I'm not saying it's going to happen.
two? I think you need an accounting software just to do the close, the consolidation. So if you don't have an accounting software, you pretty much have to do like the whole accounting on Excel, Google Sheet. So that would be painful, especially if you have like multiple
Yeah.
currencies. Yeah. So I would say I would keep my accounting software ERP, and in case it's NetSuite, and I
Right.
would keep ramp as well because right now,
Of
right
course,
now
because you need to pay the
I need
bills.
to pay the bills, and ramp right now is paying all the bills and covering all the like OPEX. I don't have to worry about that.
Yeah. Um, no, I love that. I asked this question because there's just this proliferation of new tools on the market, and people are like, "Is ERP dead?" And I'm like, "No, it's not." Can you imagine without?
Oh, you're going to do consolidation. Like, I don't know if you remember, I've used QuickBook in the past. And if you have multiple
Right.
entities and you try to do consolidation in QuickBook and you have different like functional currencies and you want like one adjustment.
Yeah. No. It is. Yeah. I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. It's just
No,
like, just
yeah,
don't do that to
no, I
yourself.
get it, yeah.
One thing, coming back to like AI is going to replace accountants. It is a myth for today. It is AI is changing very fast. The industry is moving really fast. And there's this general, moment of, as accountants, we need to stay up to date and keep learning and keep trying new things. So in that spirit, if there's a book or a podcast or a blog or a resource that you'd say every person in this domain needs to go read that, what would be your recommendation?
Wow, that's a good question. And the reason is I can't really answer because I don't listen to just one thing.
Sure. Okay.
I
Don't want to pick a
I
favorite.
do a lot of YouTube University.
Okay.
I'm a
Yeah.
big adept of YouTube University, and what I do is like I have three screens in front of me, and usually while I'm doing work, I'll have a YouTube, someone on AI doing a demonstration, and I'll just like
Right.
listen to it while I'm doing work, and then in my free time afterwards, I'll try to recreate that same thing that the person just did. So that's one.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there is this company that some I don't know randomly they added me or maybe they've been stalking me called Section. Section. It's a
Okay.
school. It's an AI school. I think it is quite expensive, but I would always
Okay.
attend their free session. They have some free sessions sometimes, and they
Gotcha.
invite different type of people. It's called Section. I think Scott Galloway is really
Oh, yeah.
is the
Okay.
founder, and
Cool.
Whenever they have free session, I always go to the free session because it's quite polished. I like going to the chat section because you can see what people are thinking about in the
Right,
comment
right, right,
wall, and then just like follow through and everything. And then I like to look at, like, for example, whatever webinar you've done. I've always been like looking at the webinars. Like I like the one that you did with the ASC 606. I've been doing my own iterations
right.
of it. I got the idea to pretty much write my whole accounting policy at REP. Use,
Love
I
it.
think that was the first session you did with Numeric a while ago.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
After
yeah.
that session, I was like, oh my God, I can pretty much write my own accounting policies. So what I did is I fed a financial statement to GPT and
Right.
told GPT to write an accounting policy for each FSLI, like significant accounts. And
Yeah.
GPT was able to do that. And we just went back and tailored it and kind of like make sure it was accurate and reviewed it. But that was a good start. And from
Right.
that start, I've been like experimenting on my own and looking at different things, which is great.
That's awesome. I love to hear that. Edwin, thank you for being so generous with your time. I feel like I've found, like a long lost friend when I talk to you. I think we learned so much by sharing our learnings and experiences. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Sonia. It was so nice.